and welcome to another episode of Actorholics. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the etiquette and do's and don'ts of auditioning. I moved here about 9 years ago, so I feel like I was just at the tail end of its glory days of going and driving into Hollywood and trying to find parking and feeding the meter because the audition's running late and then getting a ticket and all that. So there was a lot of stress that went into going into in-person auditions, but what was really nice about it was that you would do your introduction, you would slate. A slate is where you say your name and usually your height and where you're based, etc., and what character you're playing. So that's a slate. So in-person auditions, you would usually slate and do your little profiles, and then they'd ask you to do the audition. And then they would more often than not give you either a little direction or just say, would you like to do it again? In which case you would. So when it comes to self-taping, I don't think it's too much to send in 2 different tapes because that's what you would be doing in person anyway. You would be giving yourself, and the casting would give you a second chance to see what else you could bring to the material. So highly recommend doing that. I don't recommend doing any more than that, though. I don't think that they need to see every single version that you've done to see your amazing range. They will see that the more you continue showing up professionally for auditions. I'm going to make the casting of you in your audition an easy choice. So casting itself is its own weird magic sauce that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But for you just want to make it really, really obvious that you could be the right choice, maybe not for this one, but for another one, by presenting yourself in a professional way, having the right equipment for the job, and being creative with your choices. So when you're doing a theatrical audition, let's say you only get what's called the sides. So sides are just a few pages of the script that the casting director and producers and filmmakers want you to read for the part. So sometimes the sides really help you understand who the character is within a few moments, and other times it gives really no detail on who this person is, how they would behave, and what they're actually even doing. So your kind of basics of script analysis go a little bit out the window because you might not have all the givens given to you. So if you recall from our other episode, a given or given circumstances in a script is the facts of the script, and not every single person that you audition for will give you those things. So that's where it's your job to connect to the material in any way that you can, and from any angle you can latch onto, make it personalized to you, because it is your personality and your imagination that will book you the room more often than not. But also with casting, it really is just it's just a magic sauce. Like you might be so perfect for the role, but for some reason they still don't cast you, and it might just be for an asinine reason, like you look like their cousin that they don't like, and that's it. But they'll still remember you and you'll be called in for something else. If you get an audition that gives you the whole script, I highly, highly recommend you make sure you read it. Generally, when you're starting out, you're just going to be auditioning for short films anyway, so it's not like it's going to be 200 pages long or anything. But it really, really gives you so much more insight into the character than if you were to just prep the sides and then that's it. You really want to be as prepared as possible for auditions to put your best foot forward. So if you can memorize, it's great, because then you don't have to hold anything. You can use your hands. You can just kind of be present. But in no way, shape, or form is an audition supposed to be a final finished product. It is aimed to show the casting producers and filmmakers what you want to come up with and where your ideas are kind of going with the character. The rest is a collaboration if you get selected. So you don't want to put that pressure on yourself to have an audition be perfect, because it first of all, will never be, because there's no such thing as like sheer perfection, except for the film Everything Everywhere All at Once. That is sheer perfection. And Stardust. That's another great movie. Another do for setting up auditions at home is to be inspired in your costume choice by the character. So if it says something really specific, like she's wearing a bandana, then wear a bandana. Like, I don't think it's silly or cliche or, anything like that if you dress up as the character. I don't think you need to go and buy anything, like, unless you really, really wanted to, but I just recommend doing that because I think I've heard that the opposite as well, where it's like, you want to be a little bit more blank slate, but I honestly don't agree with that. If you look at kind of a famous example of the guy that plays Billy on Stranger Things, his self-tape is wild. He opens it with just like him dancing shirtless with sunglasses on. It does, I guarantee he was not asked to do that. He just felt right in the character and thought, this is how I'm going to say hello. Or this is how I'm going to slate. So you can take risks like that and have fun, because even if you don't book the room, you will book it maybe in the future with those same people because you stood out. I'm trying to think what else. I'm going to have some coffee. Anyway. So you want your reader to be someone who will just kind of read it with a little bit of feeling just to give you something, but it's also not the reader's job to give you the best acting of their ability for you to react off of. The biggest do of an audition for self-tape, at least, is actually for both, but the biggest do for auditions is to really have fun with the material and within the reality of the world that was given to you. So by have fun, I don't mean like just do it in a crazy accent because you think it'd be funny. Although I've probably done something like that before. But you really want it to live within the world, but make bigger choices than maybe you normally would if you were working on set, because they can always tell people to tone it down. Or what I like to do, and this was a tip that I got from one of my friends here, is send in 2 takes. Send in one that you think that they want to see, and then send in a take that you would want to see. So I always do that as well when it comes to filming the audition. I give myself 3 takes of, based off of what the breakdown that they sent. So a breakdown is the breakdown of the character, like what their age is, what their personality is like, any information that you get from the character. That's called a breakdown on the casting pages. So I try to give them what they're looking for in those 3 takes. I pick my favorite one to send, but then I also do a wild card take, and that is my second take that I send with every audition that I do. And I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but quite often the sort of creativity and opinion or personal kind of twist on the material is usually the more interesting take. And that is what kind of the job of the actor is that you get to know things about a character in a different way than the writer or the director does, because you're actually embodying them. My biggest don't would be to wait last minute or to not even show up. I've made that mistake, I think, once, and it felt awful. And being on the other side with casting, when you go through all those thumbnails and you take the effort to send that person the script or the sides, and then they never show up for the audition, you're never going to call them back in again. So there's always such thing as second chances, but you might as well take your first chance with things. So if you get an audition, know that you had something that like 3,000 other people did not have for that role. So really, really honor it by doing your audition early. A lot more people are casting on a rolling basis now. So what that means is they open the the time frame for people to submit, and then they have a submit by date and time. But oftentimes now they are casting way before that, because who wants to sit there for hours on end? Not a lot of people. So they cast like quickly. So get your audition in as soon as you can. You want to give yourself just enough time to prepare, but that is also something to practice on the daily, if possible, is preparing for auditions. So that's doing script breakdowns on your own and script analysis and being in class, and making sure that you're staying really sharp and focused so that when you do get an audition, your process is quick and you can upload your audition within a couple hours even, and or at least within one day, which is going to higher your chances of being seen and hired. So it largely depends on what the audition is, but as far as the general setup, what is true currently for commercial auditions is that they want it to just look natural. Like, this would maybe even work for a commercial audition because it's very casual. They're not looking for the green or blue screen as much anymore in commercial. They are, however, in theatrical. But honestly, a white wall in your house is going to be perfectly fine. I personally am using a ring light from Amazon. I'll show you the little thing. It's this one. And I really like it. You can play with the different sort of like brightness and the cool tone and stuff versus warm tone. And you definitely want to get a ring light because it makes your audition timing much wider. So a lot of people obviously have to work as well as work at being an actor. So it is really important that you get the right type of lighting to help you set up so you have good lighting at any time of day. So if you're working a day job and you can film your audition at night, you want to make sure that you're really well lit at night. I think that's it for do's and don'ts with auditions. It's get them in a timely manner, kind of dress the part without going too overboard. Make sure that you do a few takes for yourself as well as for casting and submit the best one of each. When you're in person, be early. That's another thing. If you are doing an in-person audition, it's the same thing as being on set. The way that you approach the audition, they are going to think that that's how you're going to approach set. So if you think, oh, this is just an audition, I'll show up, they said 11 o'clock, I'll get there at 10:55. They're going to assume that that's how your clock works in your life. They're going to assume that if they book you and you have 7 a.m. call, you are telling them that you will only get there 5 minutes early by coming to the audition 5 minutes early. So even if they don't notice that you're early or on time or anything, it's just better to be early. That gives you time to kind of pour over your sides again, to center yourself, to, there's a lot of benefits to going early. So yeah, I think that's it for do's and don'ts of auditions. If you have any more questions about this, let me know. I'm just gonna drink this. Don't mind me.